0800 yo fam, what's good, what's poppin'? Khalid here with another episode of Whatever In It.
Yo fam, what's good, what's poppin'? Yo fam, what's good, what's poppin'? 0800 yo fam, whatever in it? Yo fam, what's good, what's poppin'? Yo fam, what's good, what's poppin'? 0800 yo fam, whatever in it?
Bienvenidos, mi amigos, insane. Yo, I understand it's been 3 months since I've put out a podcast, right? I haven't been slacking. I didn't run out of ideas. I haven't been like mega busy where I didn't have to do it. However, I have been working on so much different things. I think the last episode 30, was when I recorded it on camera, put it on YouTube. I put the episode on IGTV. I was streaming to Twitch at the time. I was doing the most. I was experimenting with technology, all of that business. And then I found, this is God's honest truth, what I found was when I started doing the most and, you know, like streaming the music production sessions, I found that the setup of those particular production sessions, it was a lot of faff, and sometimes I'll lose inspiration. Likewise with when I put the podcast on camera, it was, you know, what am I gonna do for the next episode, editing and blah blah blah. Like, it just got very faffy. So I found that I've been the most productive when I've been away just catching a vibe. So say for instance, the music production sessions that were streamed to Twitch turned into recording poetry and putting together Cogitation pt.2, which I released on August 25th. And because I locked in on that project and I wanted to get it done and uploaded to my digital distributor, which is DistroKid, up to 3 to 4 weeks in advance of release, I was just locked in on that. Also, the music production sessions, I took them away from Twitch, and I found that I was just grafting, like creating backdrops and beats for stuff from that were pre-recorded as allegorically speaking, but also from projects I had created like 10 years ago. So it's reworking instrumentals around those vocals and stuff. I'm working on some new stuff as well, so I ain't been slacking, I ain't quit the podcasting and whatnot, but I've been busy with life, to be honest. Busy with life. I said a disclaimer, I said I wasn't going to use the term busy, but I've just been involved in so much other things. You know what I'm saying? I've been updating my blog as well with other stuff that isn't to do with me, because 0800 Yo Fam is pretty much what I see as very exciting from other people and things, but then it became a bit more about me. So I was like, let me share things that are of interest to other people. So yeah, I haven't quit. I haven't kind of forgot where I am, what I'm doing and stuff like that. But ultimately, I've just been exploring. You know, Cogitations is out now, obviously, and I'm putting together the ebook. I always thought that on episode 31, I planned to read the foreword of the book and the afterword, because I thought it was really relevant to pick up where we left off somewhere around in episode 30. Right, where, you know, you could see the emotions was there, quite distraught out of what was happening and trying to make sense of it all. But now I've put Cogitations into the ether. You know, I've shared those pieces that have quite a passionate and a radical tone to them, and now I feel like I'm more, let's say, I've processed everything, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, man, it's just been a really good place. Updates with me as well. I'm learning Espanol again. You know, I'm back on it, and it makes sense because the way I'm learning it is very contextual to being able to speak it. Because before, I had all of this vocabulary dancing around my head, and I didn't really know how to utilize it because I didn't have the basics down, if that makes sense. It's like, I guess, applications and shit like your Duolingos, your Busus, your Babbles and stuff, they are really good for picking up vocabulary and to a degree learning to read and write. But unless you are in a classroom or a tutor setting where you can learn how to speak it, you're just going to get mumbled in life. You know what I'm saying? Where I'm learning how to construct sentences and whatnot, so it's all good. So that's going well. I really want to get into... I'm going to read the foreword and the afterword of Cogitation Part 2, and I hope you go and seek it out. Like, it's available on iTunes, it's available on Tidal, Spotify, all of your streaming services. It's available to purchase. But before I was to release the book, I just wanted to read these two things because I feel like they're mega important. So yeah man, let's get into it. This was the only way I could express my thoughts. I was triggered, I was distraught, I was overcome by some kind of profound sadness. My heart felt heavier than the anvil from what I was seeing and hearing. There were no safe spaces where I could escape. The conversation was all around me. A few weeks prior to the issues around racism blowing up, I experienced an incident in a space I thought was safe, which reminded me that no matter where you find yourself, being black is a muted experience where you dwell inside the spaces of dominant society. Living and adjusting to life in a global pandemic is bad enough, but to then be prodded into engaging in conversation and then reliving past traumas is the next type of beast. All our lives, we become default spokespeople and educating everyone else about black people, history, issues, explaining nuances as if we have hooks on the back of our necks that we can be hoisted high up onto the soapbox to enlighten everyone about black affairs. It's a next type of struggle, one which I opted out of, one which, as life went on, I became less and less patient and unwilling to assume such roles. At first, like the rest of you, I welcomed the dialogue, but I quickly realised that it got exhausting. I became sick of explaining as if we were reciting a speech called Racism for Dummies. I began to question whether people were really engaged with the struggle or whether they were just jumping on the bandwagon due to societal pressures of needing to be seen to care. I remember being in a discussion where I decided to purposely not say anything to see what would happen, but rather than any response from people regarding how they felt or their reflections, there was a great wall of silence before someone mentioned property. At that moment, it was a wrap. It confirmed the willingness to never understand or go deep into the abyss to make changes. What resonated most with these people was bricks and mortar rather than black lives. I guess from that point, I just figured that the world and the spaces I was in were not ready to have real conversations, as people didn't actually care and would never care, as the issues don't affect them and never will. It was a huge wake-up call. Once I began processing what was happening, I just began writing and writing. There was no method or theme to what I was writing, but I was documenting my thoughts. I processed observations and feelings that I had held for years, threading the seeds as I went on. After forgetting about them, I rediscovered and recorded them. Before I knew it, I wanted to share this collection of pandemic poetry and prose with the world. It was equally important for me to share the conversational responses too, as they put everything into perspective in a real world context. Both the book and album are programmed chronologically. any book I've put out previously, any piece of writing, I've never really done a foreword for it, and I've never thought about what I was writing to tee up what I was introducing. But the reason I wanted to write the foreword and, you know, recite that is so you know what you're getting into when you listen to the Cogitation album. And also, when you read the book's going to contain things that I hadn't recorded. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like it was important for me to introduce what you was about to get into, because that's how, you know, a lot of these things were birthed. They were birthed in real time, you know, and there's a lot of real conversations that happen in cogitation, you know, so many real conversations. And I feel like a lot of the time it was usually we're having conversations about this stuff that we've been talking about as black people for like the past 60, 70, 100 years, for example. Like, why ain't we got no respect? You know what I'm saying? So that's why favourite pieces of mine include things like, I think group economics is one of my favourites, because group economics, it asks the question, what are we doing for self? Why is it always looking towards, you know, people that don't understand what we're going through for answers? Why are we kind of begging for acceptance, begging for respect? So on group economics, I'm like, nah, you know what? Money, power, respect. We build our money up, we build our resources up. You know what I'm saying? We demand respect. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're truly represented, because going to the ballot box, you know, someone's not really going to vote for you. What are you putting in their pockets? So I'm going off on a tangent there, but that's what I wanted to kind of, I wanted to introduce what you was about to read, because to a degree, it's a lot of it is raw. You know what I'm saying? Raw, unrefined poetry and thoughts. You know what I'm saying? When I wrote group economics, when I wrote I'm done, like, they were birthed out of genuine emotion and thought. You know what I'm saying? Like, I am done, especially like, because it's like when George Floyd died, it's like everyone's sharing his death, and I'm like, yo, I'm done with this voyeurism. You know what I'm saying? Why is this still happening? You know what I'm saying? And that led to the group economics piece, because it's like I started writing I am done, and then I started going into certain territory, and I'm like, no, let me split these two tributaries off of the main conversation. And I just want to get into the afterword, and this is assuming that, you know, you've gone and listened to Cogitation Part 2, or, you know, I want to, you're going to see it in the book as well, you're going to read it. So I want to recite the afterword, because it's like, after everything I've worked on, everything I've put out, had a chance to listen to it, and when I'm compiling the book version, I felt like I really reflected, because it's almost as though I come out on the other side and I really thought, like, why, what is it about racism and prejudice and stuff like that white people or some people just don't get? And it made me think that, it made me come to the conclusion that, like, yous lot are really conditioned. You're taught an alternative version of history that is far removed from the truth. The reason why I want to get into this forward, like I said, because I processed it and I come out on the other side, like, I actually feel sorry for people who don't get it, because they've been taught an alternative version of history till they just would never understand or see, no matter how much teaching or whatever. So then it comes out of you look at the solution and you think, what's the main solution here? The solution isn't kind of like separation in a way, like blacks live in their own communities and stuff, and white people and other cultures and whatnot go into theirs. It's not isolation. It's like you really have to dismantle the whole system. That's why we talk about relearning history as is. You know what I'm saying? Facing the inconvenient truths. And I go into a lot of that on not only group economics, but I Am Done, so I know it's real. Invisible dark faces. Like, it's never a thing of having a separationist agenda. It's like, my voice is, how do we as black people get the respect we deserve? And the answer is, we can't just keep going up to the table like Oliver and saying, please sir, may I have some more, or please sir, can I have permission? It's alright, boom, do your thing. You can control the food in the meal, but you know what, I'm gonna go out, get myself a piece of land, grow some vegetation, cook my meal, take control of my supply line, and form my own economic and, you know, resource power base. But yeah, so the afterword is this: racism is ingrained into every aspect of society on systemic, structural and cultural levels. The majority of people don't even know that they benefit from it, nor can those affected by it contextualize or articulate exactly what it is until much later on in life, which is facts. Like, there's this old thing which is like, oh, you go home to your parents, like, my teacher's racist, yeah? And it's almost, that was almost trivialized. And I speak about it in several of the pieces, right? How they deem it the race card. Well, it's not a race card, it is racism. But because it can't be articulated for you to understand, you're just not going to get it. Anyway, continue. Saddest thing is that if you're not black or a person of colour, you've probably lived a life oblivious to the tentacles of white supremacy, just how deep into the abyss they reach, and the damage that the supremacy rhetoric, its actions and extensive legacy has done to communities and cultures across the globe. Like, if you live somewhere where you are always the victor through colonization, imperialism and stuff like that, you are always the victor, therefore you're going to write the stories. So in your curriculum, it wouldn't be so much slavery, or like in the British curriculum, it's not so much you learn about slavery. They call it the slave trade. You know what I'm saying? And then when it comes to educating Britain's role in slavery, it's more so we abolished slavery. When they had cane fields, they was taking over so much places and stealing the resources. You know, so you and what you're going to be taught in school as someone that grew up in Britain, Great Britain, quote unquote, you're going to be taught from the narrative of empire. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to the narrative of being oppressed and rising up. Anyway, let's continue. It's not guilt or feelings of helplessness you feel, but more shock and anger that you've only just woken up to the atrocities that you have been conditioned not to see behind your rose-tinted lenses of privilege. Either that, or it's the horrible feeling from deep inside, knowing that all of the times you had the chance to question what was happening, you chose to turn a blind eye or disregard what was happening because you felt like you were being attacked. Now, it's a part of popular culture. You have no choice but to address and face them head on. So in that paragraph, for example, what I'm saying is, you know, there's some people are always on the defensive. Whenever you spoke about racism, they either take the conversation and make it about themselves, telling a story about themselves, or I feel so bad, da da da. You know, I'm saying that it's not a thing of, there's no cure to this, so it's not even feeling helpless. On another level, it's not about guilt. But it could be the shock that all your life, yeah, society that you've lived in has taught you the imperialist version of events and omitted all of its atrocities. So a part of your guilt and the helplessness could be the fact that you've been lied to, or you're just coming to terms with the gravitas of the actions of your ancestors and how you benefit from that. So it's like you're tying together, you're now seeing what your privilege actually is and what it still is. And the fact that to go through life, you're still going to need to benefit from such privilege. And it's like you stepping forward to try and dismantle that system, you're met with some form of dissonance because the very act of trying to do so could mean that you may have to deny yourself that privilege, if that makes sense. And then, when I say it in the second part about either that or it's the horrible feeling from deep inside. So you've probably seen things in life, right, that you've just turned a blind eye to or been very flippant around it. You know what I'm saying? Or you can turn a blind eye and not consider it because it doesn't affect you. So you don't have to question it. But now it's popular to have these conversations. So now it's popular to have these conversations, you have to face it. But then you can't face it from a place where you're still trying to avoid it because there's no masquerade. So the space you're in where you've kind of escaped it because there's been a bit of a bubble, it's coming straight to your front door. You know what I'm saying? So let's continue. I remember writing, so I know it's real, after observing everything and feeling like this was a joke thing, live in progress. It felt like every time official statements and memes were made, people would often recite the buzzwords at every opportunity. It's a deep level conditioning that makes me feel as though people don't actually know what they're opening their eyes to because none of what they seem to convey are their own words. Everything is from memes, official statements, news and parroting what the other person has said or shared. It's all lip service. So I find myself in a bit of a unique place because, you know, I observe and I listen to what's going on, and a lot of the time, right, you'll hear people say the same thing and you know exactly where they got it from. They got it from the internet, right? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. There are like educational materials out there that you can explore. But at the same time, I just think to myself, do you actually understand what this is all about? Are you understanding it? Is it making sense? Or are you providing lip service? Are you reading from a prompt, basically? You know, an external prompt because you want to feel like you understand. But realize it's okay that you don't understand, that you do not get it. I'm just at a point where when I hear people say certain things, use certain words, recite certain things, it makes me think, rah, like you're sounding real robotic right now. But it's something that you need to kind of, you know, sit and meditate on that part. Let's continue. So I didn't release the audio recordings or the ebook as an act of solidarity with any political or humanitarian movements in particular. It was an act of sowing seeds of thought together. It was an attempt to explore things and process how I felt, because for us this isn't a wake up and decide to fight the fight. We're in a perpetual state of fighting. So, you know, in terms of a question I get asked, right, is, oh, what do you think about, you know, your Black Lives Matter? What do you think about XYZ? If I'm keeping it real, Black Lives Matter. Why wouldn't that resonate with me as a black person or someone who has been classified as black? in, you know, categorization and taxonomy, right? Black Lives Matter. Simple, like we're all binding. It's like what I say in group economics, where we're like, what is it? The kintsugi lacquer. So that there's a Japanese art form, right? Called kintsugi or something like that, where you take broken fragments of vases and stitch them together with a type of lacquer and paint it gold, or it's a gold leaf that binds it together. So I'm saying that all black people across the world, no matter where we are, we're binded together by those three words. Because like I said, in terms of shared experiences, shared trauma, we are all binded together as one, right? So why wouldn't you rally behind Black Lives Matter? Politically, you know, there are some things inside that movement that I don't particularly agree with. You know what I'm saying? But that's like with any political movement. But in terms of Black Lives Matter, all I'm saying is, it's like this Cogitations Part 2 wasn't in alignment with, you know, any other political organisation, whether it be the Nation of Islam, XYZ. It's my story and what I've observed. You know what I'm saying? So, let's continue. There's no moment of innocence. There's no adolescence. There's nothing light about how fast we grow up and grasp how aggressive this society is towards us based upon the colour of our skin, where I was born and nurtured. We carry the heavy unresolved burden of our ancestors. Can you fathom something like this? So, I think the last part is self-explanatory, because growing up when you're black, you're criminalized, subject to stereotypes, looked at as inferior. You know, there's been a big propaganda campaign against you. So from the moment you're born, you're forced to grow up quickly. Like, there's no moment of innocence, because as soon as you go to school, right, a lot of us have experienced cases where, you know, you're playing your friends with someone that's white, but then everyone else gets to go into that person's house, but then for some reason you're not allowed to go into that person's house. Like, whenever you get into an argument from a young age, everyone else gets called the cuss or the C word, but you have black preceding before that. So you're taught that you're different from day one. So I just wanted to break down and go through the afterword, because I thought it's probably like one of the backbones of the project, because it conceptualizes the state of mind of where I'm at. You know what I'm saying? And how I view things. So this was an interesting episode of said podcast. Cogitation 2 is out right now. It's available to stream. I'm gonna try to release the book, or at least upload it to like your Amazon or iBooks ASAP, because I feel like the words are powerful and it's all good listening, but there's some pieces that don't feature on the audio version that are in the book, and they're equally as powerful. So stay up to date with me. You know what I'm saying? 0800 YoFam, what's good, what's poppin'? 0800YoFam.com/Khalid Omari. I've got a landing page now. 0800YoFam.com is where you'll find everything and all the information. And I feel like, you know what? I'm not even going to play this out to any music. You know, peace out. And hopefully I'll be back with you next week and we'll talk about whatever is next to talk about. But anyway, until next time, let me know what you think, feel, and your reactions.
Yo fam, what's good, what's poppin'? Yo fam, what's good, what's poppin'? 0800 yo fam, whatever in it. Yo fam, what's good, what's poppin'? Yo fam, what's good, what's poppin'? 0800 yo fam, whatever in it.